So the biggest news of the week we already talked about in a video.
Yeah, we talked about a Spider-Man, which we talked about, and whenever we talked about it, Shane kind of was just like, "Hey, this news kind of popped up, and let's just kind of like react to it in a way," which was one of those videos that I said in the beginning of the podcast. I was like, I kind of like that we did that. Maybe we should do that kind of thing more often.
Yeah.
But whenever we did that, that was kind of earlier in the day, before a lot more information had come out. So I found a thing. I just thought we would just kind of go over it again. Maybe talk about some of the different like avenues we could go down here. So I got a post here from the Marvel Studios subreddit, which it looks like to me like it's pretty balanced and got a lot of information about it. So Deadline originally broke the story that Sony and Disney would no longer continue the current contract regarding Spider-Man. Disney asked the future Spider-Man films be a 50-50 co-financing arrangement between the studios, and there were discussions that might extend to other films in the Spider-Man universe. So previously their thing was 5%. Anytime Marvel got to use Spider-Man for their movies, that's because that was part of the deal. But when Spider-Man had spin-offs, Disney had 5% of those movies. Sony paid for everything, but that was kind of like the deal, right?
When Spider-Man had spin-offs?
When Spider-Man had its own thing, its own like singular
movie,
solo movie.
So Far From
Homecoming
Home
and Far From Home, Disney would make 5% of the I think it's called first dollar revenue from that. So anyway, that's what the original deal was. Obviously, they're trying to change the deal up because I think that they're still contracted for 2 more movies.
Yeah,
starring Tom Holland.
Wait, so there still will be 2 more movies?
That's what I've heard. Yes.
Okay.
So anyway, the big thing here that happened is Deadline, in their first version of the article, which would have been around the time that we were talking about it, Deadline said that they talked about the 50-50 split, and Sony turned down that offer flat. And I don't believe they even came back to the table to figure out the compromise. And that was the thing that people were like, "Oh man, Sony
turned and
done.
said no.
All right, we're not going to do it." And then people got really, really mad,
Sure.
However, Deadline has very sneakily edited their article to drastically change the context. Sony apparently did make a counteroffer, but Disney turned it down. So they've crossed out the "I don't believe they even came back," and it's been replaced with sources say that Sony, led by Tom Rothman and Tony Vinciquerra, came back with other configurations, but Disney didn't want to do that. Okay, so now it's it's that kind of thing is kind of flipped, and it's like, well, it's falling back on Disney.
Yeah.
When people are like, what's wrong with the original offer? Should that be okay? At the very least, we'll do that. And Sony was like, when they were renegotiating this contract, Sony's like, let's continue with what we've been doing, And Disney's like, no, we don't think so. Because let's face it, people love the MCU, and you made $1 billion off your Spider-Man movie that came right after Endgame, and that sold a lot of tickets. So we want. I think at one point somebody said.
So is it Disney being like, we want more from Far From Home?
Yeah.
So in this deal, then, is it just based on like Spider-Man showing up in MCU movies, and then the MCU Spider-Man solo movies?
Disney would also.
It wouldn't affect anything with like Venom, Into the Spider-Verse, any of that stuff?
Only in the contract when it came to Spider-Man.
Okay.
I think.
And
now
Sony would still be paying all the cost.
Yeah, Sony would pay the cost of the movie, and then they would get originally they got 95% of it. And Marvel still retained like merchandise and stuff like that because that was never sold. Only the film rights were sold.
That's huge too.
And you gotta remember too, like Sony bought Spider-Man for like $7 million when Marvel was bankrupt.
Yeah.
Like so the deal that they keep getting it's pretty good for them.
So the idea here would be, they spend all the money to make Far From Home, and then if Far From Home earned $1 billion, they have to split that 50-50 with Disney, was the idea.
Now, I believe what, again, too, like this, the thing that's kind of weird about this is like they're kind of airing their dirty laundry publicly and kind of like making fan outrage a negotiation tactic, which is shitty, Like I personally, when we talk about these kind of things, when I reacted to the news the other day, it was pure fanboy. No, I need Spider-Man in the MCU, and I don't want it any other way. I don't care about like business side of things that much, but just we wanted to be fair and make sure we have all the facts when it comes to these kind of things.
And we also were reacting to a headline itself initially,
exactly,
and not really diving in super more to like, we didn't have all the information of like what's going on there. Is there more from behind closed doors? This is a news outlet. Where'd they get their information from? I had an article the other day someone sent me. And it was like, 35-year-old man dies from being addicted to energy drinks, drinking 4 a day.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? And I started reading it, and it was like, this man died of caffeine toxicity after drinking 4 energy drinks a day and 4 to 5 cups of coffee a day.
Okay.
And I'm like, that's a lot more.
That changes
and I was
things.
like, why didn't it say anything about the coffee in the title?
Yeah,
You're trying not to, make coffee bad.
It's because because they get paid per click when advertising's on their site, and you want a good clickbaity headline.
Yeah,
and that's what happens.
You want to give them enough information to be intrigued, but you don't want to give them enough information in the headline.
But like, is
know.
this Sony does not want to make a deal with Disney, or
that's
is it,
what it came out with, because Variety initially had the wrong report, and they changed it later. So they got their clicks, then changed the article to make it more truthful.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was done on purpose or something like that, or it's just. But what happened is that they put it out without having proper sources.
Right.
And all of this can be people are right now. The general thing I've been hearing is that people are very upset with Disney for being greedy, for wanting to take 50% of a film that they did not pay for, which I think is true. But there's also here in this post, Hollywood Reporter is reporting a different offer from Disney than was initially reported. Disney has been seeking to co-finance an arrangement on the upcoming movies, looking for a 30% take. That's a huge amount of money difference. You know? But the thing that it kind of came out was like, okay, so we had this deal. Disney says, hey, we want to renegotiate the deal. We want half. And usually in an arrangement, you go, it's ridiculous, 10, and then they settle on 15, Yeah. And that's how it goes. But it seems here that there was a lot of I don't know how to really say it, and this is me just kind of guessing, but kind of like ego in the sense of dude, we're Disney and the MCU. It's yeah, well, you know how much money Spider-Man Far From Home made? And that's our movie.
Yeah.
We're not getting that.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know? That's the biggest grossing movie Sony has ever had.
See, the other thing with
over
that too
$1
is,
billion.
why isn't it I don't know, I wasn't there, but why couldn't it have been hey, we want 50%, but we'll also do this to help with it,
Yeah.
Was there
Exactly.
give us 50% and we'll help more, or is
Was
it
there
just
some kind of concession that was offered?
or is it just,
Yeah.
hey, we just want 50% or we don't want to do this anymore, You made a lot of money, we want in on that money.
And,
Exactly.
is Sony or Disney feeding facts to these reporters to get things on their side?
That's the thing, and it honestly could be either way too. But obviously, this story blew up all over the place, and there was Sony put out a couple different statements that I thought were interesting. They said a statement that much of today's news about Spider-Man has been mischaracterized. Has mischaracterized recent discussions about Kevin Feige's involvement in the franchise. Because the one thing is that Kevin Feige operates as a producer on those movies, And they said something really weird that I think is interesting. They said, I hope this might change in the future, but we understand that Feige has many new responsibilities because Marvel has just added all this new IP. They have X-Men, they have all that stuff. And I'm thinking okay, on the surface, I get what you're saying there. Maybe Feige's if we don't get more money, it's not worth me going over there because I could be working on this stuff, But to say that he doesn't have the time to do it, he produced Infinity War, Endgame, the last 5 Marvel movies at the exact same time, and they're all over $1 billion in terms of don't say he doesn't have the time to do it. That's just kind of, I felt like that was kind of a
slight,
not slight, but kind of an assumption or something where they're trying to cover their ass a little bit. It's well, we understand if he doesn't have the time and to justify what they're asking for and stuff like that. So I don't know. When it came to all this stuff, I really just care about the stories. I don't care about the business side. I don't call one company evil or one stupid or one in the right or in the wrong.
Yeah.
These guys make these crazy things and they deserve the money that they make from it. It's just how it is.
Yeah.
But
I hope that they can come to terms,
to an agreement,
make something work out, so that the fans that really enjoy the stories they're telling and want more. Because for a while there, I was just thinking about because I didn't dive into anything else with it.
Sure.
But I'm man, if Spider-Man's not anymore, Far From Home, the way it ended, I can't just let it end there and there's no more Tom Holland Spider-Man and we go into a new Spider-Man entirely and I don't want that. That's not what I want.
Exactly. And Tom Holland is still contracted, and their original deal I think still has 2 more movies.
So the Disney Sony deal, they still are making 2.
I believe so. I might be incorrect with that. If anything, I know
I'd be less bothered by that.
Tom Holland is still under contract for 2 more movies, but it might not fall under the Disney purview.
But how does that work with the Sony Disney contract of that all? Yeah.
So again, I kind of feel like this was leaked or kind of thrown out there prematurely. so that you feel this fan outrage, and now there's a lot more pressure to reach a deal. Like, I don't think that this like never gonna happen. To me, this feels exactly like Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Yeah.
And the director, what's his name?
James Gunn.
Yeah.
James Gunn.
Right? Like when that happened, and we're like, well, what the fuck? And it's like, I don't think they're never gonna fix that. And then a couple months later, I got fixed.
Yeah.
You know, and then
never was.
Batista
like
threatens to leave again.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm leaving MCU, and
the thing too. How long do we have until another Spider-Man movie comes out?
Probably a while.
It won't be next
while.
year. Maybe 2 years. Probably 3 years.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's time to come to negotiations and figure out what they want to do. Where it's not like they're holding them hostage now from us because we aren't getting our Spider-Man.
Well, and not just like Spider-Man, but it seemed like they were going in a direction where he was going to be a lead or a member of the new Avengers.
Yeah, like he was going to be a new forefront for like, you know, we've lost this. Now we need something else to really be in the front, and this is what we have. But then also by the end of that, like maybe not. Like by the end of Far From Home, is it going to be going a way of like, you know, Iron Man and Tony Stark? And, you know, who he is being, you know, I'm Iron Man, you know, that kind of thing? Or is it going to go a different way entirely?
Yeah.
So, we may never know.
To me, I feel like he's the new Tony, kind of, you know?
In a way, yeah.
Like, not in terms of replacing...
Dude, man, he's like Tony and
he's like what Tony I'm saying is, like, he's like... I feel like he could be the leader of the Avengers, and... You know what I mean? And he's like the most interesting character to me right now.
And I mean, the fact that the actor is so young, like they could put an investment into that character, and he can ride out the next. He's
fucking
years.
Nathan Drake too now.
Yeah, I know.
Dude, that's crazy. But no, like Spider-Man to me, especially this one here, he's got the smarts and the technology, like technological know-how of Tony Stark.
Yeah.
But he also has like the heart of Captain America. You know,
Sure.
like he's like a good mix of those two characters to me.
Yeah.
What's weird is like if the next movie, well, I guess if the next movie adds the next two movies, if you're correct, like would he just have a regular suit? You know what I mean? Like that'd be kind of weird.
I don't know.
Just ignore everything that's happened before.
I mean, you know, spoilers into the latest Marvel movie, but. You know, if you don't want to hear him, maybe skip ahead to a certain spot. I don't know when, but you know, he made his own suit.
Yeah,
you know, eventually. You know, granted, he used awesome shit to do it, but he made his own suit.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And you know, like it's one of those things where like you get a superhero show that focuses on one character, like let's say the Flash, or let's say Arrow. And Arrow starts out by himself, and he can do a lot of things. And then you start adding more to his team, and he gets more resources. He starts to do less himself and relies on others, you know? So there has definitely been people out there saying that, you know, they don't love this version of Spider-Man because, you know, like he didn't make his own suit originally. Like he had that kind of like sweatsuit thing, but he needed Tony Stark to come in, do something. Or, you know, like we didn't get to the Uncle Ben stuff with him, and I think that we want to see that with a Spider-Man, you know, even though it's there, we didn't really get to see it. Like those arguments, while I think they have some merit, like I don't personally think that's a detriment to the character. Like I think Spider-Man in the MCU, the best thing he does is that he's a promise for the future, and he has things to look up to and aspire to, you know, while doing it the way that he wants to do it. I love that about him. You know, no other character in Marvel really does that right now because they're not that young.
One of the interesting things about it was like I felt like Uncle Ben was less of a motivator, and Tony Stark is more of a motivator.
Well, to me, it's not necessarily that because he was out there doing that before Tony ever found him.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
he started doing significant things after Tony.
True, but it's more. We don't know.
I mean, the thing you have there is he's also like he didn't have anyone to follow. He was making up as he went. Yeah. So I mean, you saw some things where like he was trying to stop guys and trying to find his way of how to be a hero, which I think is directly related to Uncle Ben and his, you know, what happened there. Even though we haven't seen it, we've known it like, several times.
But we do see, like, you know, when he wears a suit of his Uncle Ben's or he's using like the luggage and stuff, like we know that pain and grief and all that stuff is there and happened. It's just that we've already seen it twice on the big screen and multiple times in television and stuff like that. And it's
television.
Like we can kind of just skip over that and like know that he feels sad that his uncle's not there, but that's not the story to be told right now, which I think is fine. You know?
I mean, in the Marvel Spider-Man game, like I wasn't like, man, I wish they would have put me in the beginning. I would have seen this Spider-Man become Spider-Man. I liked jumping into the middle and being like here's a Spider-Man
fully established.
I don't know why he's here. I don't know how he made his suits. I don't know any of his story, you know, but it's cool that here's a Spider-Man, and I like the character, and I like the story I get, you know?
And I loved that game, and I loved the story. But I also, I loved Into the Spider-Verse. I loved that movie. Mm-hmm. But in the back of my head, as I'm watching those, I'm going like, oh, man, I'm glad we got this, in addition to having him with the other Marvel heroes over on Marvel Studios movies, you know? Like, in my head, I'm also thinking like, this is like a cool, like, almost what if, and my main Spider-Man is here doing his story still. I just don't want that to go away. I feel like it's a good foundation for me,
I still haven't watched that. It's on Netflix too.
What?
Into the Spider-Verse.
Into the Spider-Verse?
Yeah, I haven't watched it.
Amazing, dude.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
No, I don't know what the rights are for the video games, but does this hamper possibilities of Spider-Man being in the new Avengers game?
Yeah, I don't know. There's an article
so.
on it actually on IGN. I haven't clicked on it, but that's what I was wondering.
Yeah, film rights it's just different. Sony owns the film rights of Spider-Man. Marvel owns everything else, I think. So like the games have to be licensed.
Yeah.
Still.
So however the license is, like, the Spider-Man game, had exclusive rights to the Sony one, but perhaps Spider-Man solo games, if they tie a universe together for like a game universe, those would be on PlayStation, possibly. But it doesn't mean that Spider-Man can't show up in other games.
If this deal doesn't work out, like, I wonder if Marvel will be pissed at Sony and won't allow the character on the PS4.
Like, just like Squaresoft was pissed at Nintendo for a decade.
The thing with that is it really depends on how the contracts are and stuff with it. And I imagine they have to make some money from those video games being
They do.
out,
They get money from the license.
You have a license out. They're making the game. Sure, it's on the PlayStation, but that's to sell PlayStations. But to not have it on Sony. My thing, too, about exclusive, like, console games, like, if I make a game and I put it only on Sony, I'm losing out on anyone that would buy it and want it on any other console, So from like a creator standpoint, I should put it on everything I can so that it's more widely available to anyone who could want it.
Yeah, but sometimes Sony or a company will pay more money. Or like Bayonetta 2 was not going to get made, and Nintendo said, "I'll give you money," and it's only going to be on Nintendo.
Sure. Yeah,
and all these people were like, "Why would they do that?" I'm thinking it's because it would never have gotten made unless Nintendo came in like Tom Cruise and saved the day.
I don't know how Tom Cruise relates, but exactly. And you got to balance out the idea of, like, is this money, enough to make this an exclusive title for just this one console, or would I make much more going this way, or is it a good enough agreement for whatever?
I know sometimes it's like, we'll give you the money to make this game, and it's 10 years. It can't be on another console. So we have that a lot.
Before the conversation goes any further, like, there was people are saying in the chat, like, Sony just recently bought Insomniac that created Spider-Man recently too. So that kind of like. We don't know. Like, does that mean that Sony through Insomniac would have to pay for the license from Marvel? Because I don't know about the video game stuff.
Sony would have to have an exclusive deal on it,
I think. So again, this kind of stuff is like, it's not why I'm a fan. But it is kind of interesting.
And Disney has a pattern of fucking Spider-Man, because when they bought it, like, that's what killed Spectacular Spider-Man, the TV show, along with Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes.
But that was true of, like, that's true of a lot of, like, when another company buys another company, they usually kind of like wipe the slate clean and start again. I mean, I absolutely loved Clone Wars when it was going, but when Disney bought Lucasfilm, they stopped Clone Wars and they started their own productions,
But they fucked Jesus.
Yeah,
they did the right thing,
and then they came back.
I don't know who said it, but that butt was so damn loud.
Shane.
But
it was so fucking loud.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, even still though, like, I've still really enjoyed the other stuff they've put out as well.
And that Spider-Man game, like, didn't it? It became like the best-selling superhero video game of all time.
Yeah.
Became one of Insomniac's best-selling games of all time.
Yeah.
It was great. I loved it.
Me too. I just, I imagine that we'll hear in the next year or so, we're gonna hear of an agreement has been reached.
Hopefully.
I'm sure.
I'm not like one of those guys that's like Disney is the most evil company in the world, even though I don't think they're the greatest or anything. Because one, they handle a lot of the things that I really love, and I'm not as like shitty about those things. I shouldn't say shitty. Like, I don't like dislike a lot of the things that they've done in other properties, but we'll see. I just I would hope that, like, the fan outrage or the fan response to this shows both companies is like, hey, we need you to make a deal because, I'm going to go buy it if it's there, regardless of who gets that money or how much of that dollar that I spend.
They both benefit more from it.
Yeah,
I feel like,
they benefit more from it than it not having it there,
Well, even if, I don't know how the deal exactly worked with, like, Endgame and Infinity War, but having Spider-Man in there, like, having that character giving money to Sony for that, but being a big part of other things that Disney's making more money from, it's got to help out both ways either way, right?
For me, it was like, if Disney is the one that's like, yeah, we don't want to continue with this arrangement, we want more. I can kind of see why, because the MCU is like a big giant billboard for Spider-Man solo movies at this point, It's like, well, I'm not going to not go see Spider-Man, even though it's a different company, because it directly ties in. Like, I need the conclusion of this final phase, or this phase 3 of the MCU, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, again, I would have done that thing where it's like, you know, all right, how about 50? And they'd be like, no, not at 50, you know.
But
how
also,
about
that
10?
ship is also probably sailed. Like, you know, I don't think Spider-Man's next few movies are quite going to be as much reliant on.
It depends. It depends on what the next, like, phase 4, probably not, but phase 5, probably so. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe.
Like, I don't even know what Spider-Man will be. Phase 4 is only going to be the next 2 years. Spider-Man not even appear.
I mean, what were you going
know?
to say? It might not be relying on what?
The MCU is what I assume you were going to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends if, like, you have characters like Happy Hogan you're going to cut out, or, you know, different things like that. Like Happy Hogan, that's from Iron Man, so, I mean, that's definitely from the MCU of it, you know? Sure. If you just go without it, you cut him out, like, he seemed to be a big part of that then, and they kind of tossed in that Aunt May kind of, like, idea thing there. So,
and then
I mean,
they threw it
like,
out.
I mean, they can, I guess, but it just depends on what they do. I don't know. I mean, you could also have more tie-ins to a lot of stuff. I mean, the villains we've had for Spider-Man have also been very tied to Iron Man and Tony Stark as to why they are who they are and how they got made, you know? So, I mean, you can always have villains that aren't tied to the universe and stuff too, but that's been a staple of being like, it's all tied together.
You know, Saba in chat is saying, like, you know, it's not that Disney, you know, wants 50% of this Spider-Man. They want it of all of the Spider-Verse, like Venom, is what they're saying.
That's what I was asking before.
But I haven't seen, like, an official source on that. And now, granted, I might have just missed it.
Yeah.
But I didn't talk about that because I just wanted to make sure we were talking about things that we knew, or as much as we could have known, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, maybe that's the case. And if that's the case, then, yeah, that's not
I think
great.
that's 100% ridiculous if there's, like, I mean, unless they're trying to make a deal to buy back the rights.
Yeah.
But if it's movies they aren't making money from, they're not helping, and Sony's just doing it all on their own, but I don't think Disney should be.
If Venom 2 is starring the MCU Spider-Man as well, then does that count rather than versus just the contracted Spider-Man films? You know?
I mean, but can they do that? Because, like, how are the contracts set up for that? They probably can't.
I think it's the muddy water, you know, that kind of thing is there. Like, I don't know. I'm also not a businessman. I also don't love talking about it that much, you know. So I hope that they work it out. I
imagine most of their contracts were set up where it's very specific on what they're allowed to do and what they can have.
Yeah,
and then that's why they're not making a solo Spider-Man film off over here. You know, they're making like these spin-offy things based on Venom with no Spider-Man connection, based on Into the Spider-Verse animated, can't be confused with the MCU, you know? Yeah. So, like, they're doing things like that so they can kind of keep things rolling over here for Sony with some Spider-Man, but not Spider-Man.
I get you. I personally feel like the things that I really love about this version of Spider-Man came from Civil War. You know, like, it was incepted there, you know? Like, the Russo brothers talk about, like, one of them is like, Spider-Man is my favorite superhero, you know, like the way they introduced him and brought him in there, and then Sony is just like, all right, here you go, you're getting, you know, you're doing that. I don't feel like Sony's like, oh yeah, they're responsible for everything about Spider-Man that I love, you know what I'm saying? So I'm not like on Sony's side when it comes to this. I'm not necessarily on Disney's side or Marvel's side or any side. I just want more of that. So whoever's responsible for that, if they deserve more money, sure, give them some more money, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, I just, you know, when I kind of read some of the comments and people talking about this, and it's like, it's all about Disney greed, or it's all about Sony greed. It's like, that's not true. It's definitely in the middle there somewhere, Give Disney 25%, and Disney will let you have Vincent D'Onofrio and Charlie Cox.
Oh, fuck yeah.
in your solo movie for the next one.
I know, that'd be great. That'd be fantastic.
Having John Berthal Punisher and Tom Holland
They
Spider-Man.
did that. Like, fuck Disney. Sorry. I'd be playing PS4 only.
Could you imagine a story where it's Bernthal and he's hunting like a mutating Tom Holland, like mutating into spider, like man spider?
That would be interesting.
From the cartoon,
yeah. There was I remember a cartoon like series where like Predator's hunting down this monster, and it's Spider-Man who's been like mutating into an actual spider, and he gets like 6 arms and stuff and all that. And it'd be fun if you had John Bernthal and Tom Holland, and they're doing that.
Yeah. Just shooting. I love hearing him scream. Like, he probably lift like 1,000 pounds
just by screaming.
Yeah. All right, so I think that was our Spider-Man conversation, but you know, we'll see where it goes. I'm happy of, like, I just want it again. I'm happy with what we gotten. I want that. I want more of that.
I want to keep feeling what I'm feeling.
Whatever you gotta do to do that. If like, you know, what if Disney said, hey, yeah, we want half the profits, but we'll pay for half the movie, you know?
Yeah, like
something like
that's
that.
why I was asking. Like, I wasn't in there, but I would hope that if they said, you know, we want 50%,
sure,
there'd be a follow up of, and here's what you get if you give us 50%.
Yeah. Sony, like, their meal ticket is Spider-Man and now Venom, you know? Like, that's what we got. Disney's like, we got Star Wars, we got the rest of the MCU. Like, we'll just make another Black Panther movie, you know? Like, that thing sold like crazy. Captain Marvel, that thing sold like crazy. They're gonna be fine if this deal doesn't come through.
Toy Story 5.
Yeah, I don't think Sony will necessarily be fine if the deal doesn't figure its way
out. I know
out.
during the PlayStation 3 era, it was the only profitable thing they had.
Yeah.
And now the PS4 is doing very well. So.
Yeah. So, anyway, yep.